Back here now at 9:27 on Live Impact News. I'm Jane Monreal. June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, and it's a reminder that brain health isn't something to think about when we're older. It's something we need to do right now, no matter the age. Joining us this morning live in the Live Impact studio is Jenny Yop. She is from the Ivey Brain Health and Memory Wellness Center right here in Charlotte. I've talked to her before on matters when it comes to brain health, but happy to have Jenny here live in studio. Jenny, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Jane. It's great to be with you.
So for people who have not heard of the Ivey, been supporting folks with brain concerns, memory wellness, I should say, for many years, 16 years? Longer,
16
something
years.
like that? Yeah.
That's right.
Describe what the Ivey does and who they serve.
Well, the Ivey was built really as a tribute to Lynn Ivey's parents. It's in her name, her family's name, not connected to the department store, by the way, but truly a place to support families, adults living with cognitive changes. From the very beginning, it was an all-day, North Carolina recognized an all-day adult program. And when COVID hit, became an opportunity for an afternoon program and more of a focus on prevention, since there's so much amazing science around this topic. This very terrifying but very important topic. And even more recently, we've even launched a program for folks that are living with Parkinson's disease. So really it's a place, it's non-clinical, looks like a mountain chalet in the middle of South Park, a club environment, and we offer an afternoon club and other opportunities for folks to come in and really benefit from the latest brain science in a very nurturing team.
Yeah, it does look like a very nice chalet. That's exactly what I'm thinking. And so when most people hear about Alzheimer's Awareness Month, we might think it only applies to older adults, right, or caregivers. Who should really be paying attention as well?
That's a great question, and that is one of the most challenging, even along the lines of all the billions of dollars that are being spent on trying to, find a cure. Alzheimer's begins, 20 some odd years before even a symptom shows up. So the prevention side of it, therefore, means that we're looking at this. You're never too early to be looking and considering what happens in our brain. Long before, we're aging every moment, fortunately, if we're here. At the same time, those significant changes that really can create that neurological disorder begin decades before we're that golden senior.
Yeah,
So,
you said, it can begin years before symptoms
Absolutely.
even appear. So what does that mean then for those of us who are in our 40s and 50s, even younger?
Well, it's hard because fear doesn't motivate most of us for very long unless we are directly supporting or know of someone in our life, which is rare if we don't, who's dealt with such decline. So the concepts, though, the brain pillars that science just continues to elevate for us. If we can address those now, first, obviously, education, what those are, and really understand that on a consistent basis of really taking care of those lifestyle choices and those brain health pillars, there's a lot of opportunity to either prevent or potentially even mitigate when we have already some symptoms going on. So.
All right, so let's talk about some of the most practical, everyday things that people can do to protect their brain.
Well, I think this probably is the case. If I don't want to say think, science definitely shows that managing our stress is an enormous impact. What happens in our
Lost there.
internal chemistry or the terrain of our body, certainly in our brain, is unfortunately it's very consequential, and we're going to have the stress. We're going to have it. So how we manage that is really key. And so really taking a deep dive on mindfulness, taking a deep dive on goodness, even leg day. So yes, exercise is definitely a pillar, and the concept of how much positive blood flow happens, but especially a particular neurotransmitter called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's elevated when we exercise. So it isn't just around the concept of prevention for potentially cancers and cardiovascular, diabetes, that type of thing. It has an immediate impact on our brain in a brilliant way if we are moving our body intentionally. So sleep, it's not a hierarchy, but everything's connected. And the concept of really deep restorative sleep, which many of us can say is definitely a big challenge, And it's possible, and it's vital. So to know that we really need, that's when our brain cleanses itself. It's like a little vacuum in there while we're sleeping, and it's really critical that we get deep sleep. So those are the types of things. Cannot eat enough leafy greens. It really, a plant forward. I understand protein's the latest, greatest focus in the world of nutrition, and yet there are so many vital phytonutrients that come from having a plant forward nutrition. Not saying no meat, that's not the concept, but our brain in particular really thrives by consuming as many plant-based nutrients as we can. So the other ones, of course, I think they're obvious, but maybe people don't think about this. It's really, some of us are considered introverts, for example. I don't fall in that category, but the idea of not isolating, when we isolate ourselves, maybe it's in front of our computer because we work a lot, or we just prefer to be at home, alone. The chemistry in our brain is significantly affected by that. So deep social connections, you don't have to have a ton of them, but to have deep social connections is really vital long before we have any concerns of brain change. And the neuroplasticity piece of it around discovery, like really, we call it almost agitating your brain. That's what the science uses, like constantly challenging your brain on a consistent basis to learn new things. Goodness, the research behind art and learning to play an instrument. Maybe you don't think you're musical, but every part of your brain lights up when we're involved with art, music, learning a second language. It's never too early to start. We may not feel like there's an intention for us to travel the world, possibly, but why not dive deep in learning something that's difficult like that, but it's possible for us to do it, and challenging our brain from a neuroplasticity perspective is really vital. So those are kind of the big ones, the main pillars of brain health.
Yeah, that's great. I'm like mentally checking off, some of the things, the greens and the language learning, and I think that's all I can do. It's like, oh no, I need to work on my sleep and my stress management. Let's talk about stigma. And the Ivey talks a lot about the stigma. Why does it actually get in the way of families trying to get help?
That's a great question. If I have a chance to ask a higher power questions, this will be one of them. Hopefully for an answer back. I think it's very difficult to accept the brain changes. That for some reason we kind of expect our knees and our backs. That's just a lot of conversation we'll all have. I'm aging, so of course, things don't physically feel as well, and maybe even systemically, things aren't always going as well. We've lived a long life, and maybe we're only in our 30s or 40s. That's still a lot of life. And next thing you know, the idea, though, of not being able to think as clearly as I do, remember the things, we have a lot in there, right? And yet the things that are most vital to us, our families, it's so connected to our heart, our emotions. It's very difficult to imagine that we're going to lose that. So all of a sudden fear or denial pops right up. And yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good answer. Over the weekend, I don't know if you saw this story, but the main anchor at the ABC station up in New York City, beloved, longtime anchor, Bill Ritter, I believe is his name. He just announced on air that he was stepping away from his role because of a diagnosis of Alzheimer's at 76 years old. I believe he's still going to do some stories as sort of help shine a spotlight on what it is to go through those early stages for maybe as long as he can. But yeah, as a viewer and certainly as someone in the industry, just looking at that from the outside in, your heart breaks for someone like that, because they're telling us that they're going to be going through this, where, like you said, someone who has even a heart attack, you expect them to maybe have some of these physical signs of aging, but yeah, when it comes to that brain, it's a scary and a new frontier for many, and it takes a village. And so with that, there are workshops that the Ivey offers to help not only those who are caring for someone with memory or brain or Alzheimer's, but the folks, like you said, younger people who are concerned about their own health and looking ahead. What does a program look like?
Well, thanks for lifting that up. We definitely believe in the power of education and empowerment, and I think that that's a part of it. Fear it can only really be tampered by feeling inspiration and empowerment, and that comes with information education because the science is supporting that. So we do offer twice a year a Brain Health College, and it's an 8-week deep dive series. We have commissioned the experts from around the Charlotte community, MDs, PhDs, folks to come in and take those deep dives with participants so that we can really learn the latest science, the why, and then the practical ways of how we can implement changes, the small changes. We're busy working, we're busy parenting, we're doing a whole lot of things, and sometimes it's like, I'll do that later. But there's so many concepts and tips and tools that we can learn that can be practical every day. And to know that the research is supporting that as reality, not just, rah-rah,
Right.
is very empowering. So we certainly, we try to educate all the time on a consistent basis, but those deep dives have been very powerful. So we've had about 200 people graduate from our Brain Health College, yeah.
I mean, these are people that have full-time jobs.
That's right.
Right? They manage their time to get some involvement there.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is worried about their parent or themselves or a spouse showing signs of early memory loss, what are the first steps they should take?
Well, definitely, there are some wonderful clinics around the community when it comes to the medical aspect of it. You've got neurologists and different resources there throughout Charlotte. They're very busy, unfortunately. Sometimes the wait list is 6 months long, and that's reality. It's very difficult to get into a neurologist in Charlotte. And fortunately, we've got some new ones that are popping up with Atrium's partnership with Wake Forest Baptist Hospital. So, but in any case, we also try to provide as much resource as we can. We're not the one-stop shop for everybody, but to know that we can support caregivers. We are a people-facing organization, so picking up the phone and calling the Ivey might be a first good step, because I believe it would be, at least as far as we can maybe direct you to someone else if needed. But we take a whole lot of effort, and we've obviously a lot of experience in really help providing support for the caregiver. So we try to be a resource for the community. We have support groups, both online and in person. We meet with folks if they just walk in the door, and just provide as much resource as we can. We've been doing this for a long time. So
yeah. I think you and I talked about the caregiver and how they fall to early memory loss sooner than non-caregivers. Why is that?
Well, it's like mentioning the first potential pillar of brain health, the managing the stress, and of course that tends to lead to not taking the time for the exercise, not taking the time to prepare fresh food, not just taking a moment to maybe tap into creativity part of your life. And I listened to a recent interview with the Shares-Eye couples, that's husband and wife, who are brilliant neurologists, neuroscientists, and they used the percentage, 600% increase. I didn't even know such a thing as 600%, but just to say a 600% increase in the risk for the caregiver to experience dementia. Maybe not has to be along the lines of Alzheimer's. There's hundreds of dementia, right? But the idea of the impact is incredible. So Lynn Ivey will say that she built the Ivey for the caregiver. She experienced that with her father. He was taking care of her mom, who lived with and died from Alzheimer's, and his health, including his cognitive health, declined significantly there in Wilmington. So when she left the banking community to build the Ivey, she will say it's as much of a support, because it does provide an opportunity for their loved one who's living with that decline to come for 4 or 5 hours. And now we have followed that exact same model for the adults that are living with Parkinson's, who may not present with dementia, but that is obviously a neurological disorder. It's a different time of day for us, but they come in for 4 or 5 hours. It provides support for both of them. The research behind the way to fight back against those symptoms is incredible, and it's very empowering, and it provides the loved one an opportunity, the caregiver, a chance to go take care of what they need to take care of, because it's 24/7. It's not something that, and even the inability to sleep at night, it affects both of them. So it makes sense that there's quite a spiral that can happen for the caregiver's health as well. So we just try to provide what support we can for that.
And I've read, is it the sandwich generation, where they're taking care of their aging parents as well as young children at home, that group of parents that are being pulled in both directions. So, I mean, it's like almost a double dose of
I'm trying to make
challenge
sure
there.
that I'm listening to my own 2 cents. I have a mother with dementia, and I have 2 dependent daughters, and working. You know, it is a lot, and so I'm one of many. Obviously, I have many peers that are very much in this situation throughout our world, and there's a lot of resources for us, but we have to really pay attention to this and believe that it's important.
Yeah, and the power of community too, to
Absolutely.
say, and feel like you're not alone, and you can commiserate together and joke together and help each other out.
Lots of tips and tools. You'd be amazed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If someone has, you said your mom has dementia, my maternal grandmother, but she also lived until 102. So it could just be aging. I don't know. But, she had dementia, I think, starting in her 90s, late 80s. Does that automatically mean it's going to be passed down? What does hereditary factors look like?
Great question. And I think, as you referenced early on, you said we just assume it's going to happen with age. And then we also say, well, I don't have anybody in my lineage with that genetic. And yet we might say I do, so therefore I will. And the truth is, like most chronic diseases, 70% of it, and I know there's a little bit of a wiggle room in 70, 72, is based on our own lifestyle. And what we're going to do, what we do in our day-to-day lives, how much we're surrounded in toxicity, what we clean with. I mean, all the little things can matter. This is beautiful. It feels very clean, by the way.
I cleaned earlier.
But not clean. I'm not just sitting here smelling, bleach. And that matters. I mean, think about how they really started to narrow down how we even possibly get a Parkinson's, paraquat, and that type of toxicity. It's in farming. It's in golf course. There's lots of reasons that that they're finding that really do impact us. So the answer to that question is that it's possible for us not to have that particular future. And that possibility is, again, depends on who we are. We can say, I can only imagine the worst case scenario, so therefore I'm just not going to take care of myself. And that's not true. Really, the idea of trying to implement different tips and tools, not all at once, it can be overwhelming and daunting to imagine I have to do everything right, and that's not the case. But to know that science proves that we can have a huge impact, no matter our genetic makeup. Even folks with both of the APOE genes from both sides of their maternal and paternal, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be their future with Alzheimer's.
Okay, yeah. Like Chris Hemsworth he did that documentary with his dad, and he presents with both of the genes, and he's doing everything, it seems, because of that knowledge.
Sure.
My follow-up is, can you reverse any cognitive decline once you recognize it and change your habits and ways?
Great question. There's not going to be a guarantee to 100% of people that they can, and yet over and over and over, even we've only launched our Parkinson's program for 6 weeks, and the difference in several of those folks and their testimonial around that, their physical therapist testimonial, so it's the same with any neurological disorder. There are opportunities to mitigate the symptoms. Reversing them means that it's kind of like the cure idea. I don't know that that's actually been established yet. But to know that your quality of your life could be extended, just like you're referencing folks that we're aware of that are diagnosed, the ability to mitigate them and put some of them at bay, much less change symptoms depending on your particular diagnosis, with our choices and a very intentional, vigorous effort around that. It's possible, absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's promising. Any other promising news on the horizon, or is there hope for folks who are dealing with it in their family or themselves?
Well, if I could just love on everybody, and it sounds so cheesy, but to say the idea of denial, which you kind of mentioned earlier, the kind of go, I'm just going to wait, or I'm not going to worry about this right now, or it can't be that, maybe it's midlife changes or whatnot. The truth is, it's so normal now. Unfortunately, it's so common. We want to neutralize the conversation. We want people to feel like they can talk about it, and do so and be received in a compassionate and respectful way, and empowering way. There are things that we can try to do. And I'll just use a perfect example. When my mother has physical therapy, and she lives in assisted living, but when I call her on the phone and she's just had physical therapy, and she went down for lunch. My conversation with her is so familiar. It's back when she did not have dementia. So similar versus when she's in her apartment on her own and for a few days and hasn't been moving her body, hasn't been engaging with other people other than on the phone with her children and her grandchildren. It's amazing. And I know that that lifts her up because that's her quality of life. She laughs with me. She is very smart, the smart that she's always been. And that has every bit to do with those lifestyle things that have happened within that day. And that's a lived experience that I have personally, much less those that we work with every day at the Ivey. So
wow, that's yeah. I mean, and so I'm learning the sleep, the stress management, mostly lifestyle, social, getting some of that right brain action going.
Leg day.
Leg day. Extra. What's good for the heart is good for the brain.
That's right.
And
That's right.
And having some people love on you.
Have some people love on you and do some creative things together. Here, there's a new place called Splatter Charlotte. Go create some art, but throwing some painting against the wall. I don't know.
Can you drink wine with that?
A little bit of wine, maybe a little
bit
bit.
of wine, wine and art. You know, that's what I'm about. All right. Anything else that we should take away from our conversation, Jenny?
I think it's important to continue to lift it up. I appreciate that we have months that are, in honor of that education opportunity, and to know there are resources in Charlotte. We live in a wonderful city with a whole lot of resources, and the Ivey's been here a long time trying to be a part of that team, and we appreciate all the neurologists and clinics and everyone that recommends or refers folks to us. But any questions or just maybe a next step that folks could take if they want to give us a call, happy to support them.
All right, very good. Jenny Yop from the Ivey right there in South Park, and it does look like a comfy place to cozy up and get what you need from them. So look into all of their workshops, and whether it's brain wellness or the new Parkinson's program, which is just as important and a resource for the community out there. I think it's good stuff. All right, Jenny.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Jane. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
Sure.
We'll be right back here on Live Impact News.